All right, hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Biomassed podcast. We got a full night tonight. I really appreciate it for tying into the in-game channel and listening live here on our stream, or if you collect us up out on your iTunes RSS feed. So really appreciate the feedback we've been getting lately, and we've got a pretty packed house tonight, and it's a pretty straight crew that we got on tonight. We'll be able to get into some technical discussions and probably have a good time doing it while we're at it. The One quick thing. Let's see. We've got one new CPM candidate on with us, Appia Vibbia. We're going to introduce her in just a minute. We've got Aeon Amadi and Pokey Dravon, Soraya Xel, Black Jackal, and Zatara, and myself and Legend Wait For It Derry, otherwise known as Derry. So again, full house tonight, but we've got a lot of things on the docket tonight. We'll be talking a little bit about what we've been doing in game lately, because there's been a lot of resurgence of some old school tactics or some old school weapons. Basically, the gameplay meta is changing a little bit, so it'll be kind of good to talk about that. And then we have Hotfix Bravo that's in the works. It looks like that's almost locked, if not locked now, and that'll be the next basically pseudo point iteration coming out for Dust. And there's a lot of number crunching going on to that, and there's a lot of community feedback involved, particularly with the folks that you've got in the room tonight. And we'll talk a little bit about the technical pieces of the gameplay and how the experts in the room think that it's going to affect things, either positively or negatively, and sort of based on what they've seen in Alpha and potentially Bravo, where they think CCP are to go. So with that, we'll kind of start with our intros tonight. Zell?
Yeah, I'm Soraya Xel. I am a leader in the Top Men Alliance on Dust 514. I'm also a member of Strange Energy, which is in the Bastion in EVE Online, and I'm running for CPM.
Awesome. And Aeon?
He said he'd be right back. Like 10 minutes.
Appia, you're it.
Alright, I'm Appia Vibbia. I want to run for CPM. I've submitted my application to Logibro. I haven't heard back from him yet because I did it over the weekend.
Nicely done. What corp are you with?
I'm currently in Mullen Labe.
Okay, awesome. And I'm Jaysyn Larrisen. I'm one of the hosts here on Biomass, and I am a diplomat for the Covert Intervention Alliance and OSG Planetary Operations. And let's see. And Derry?
Hey, this is Derry. I'm a director for OSG Planetary Operations and community director for OSG Planetary Operations and tech support over here for Biomass.
Sweet. And Pokey Dravon.
I'm Pokey Dravon. I'm CEO of OSG Planetary Operations and Alliance Leader in Covert Interventions, and I'm also running for CPM1.
Black Jackal. I gotta say it. He's the thunder from down under.
I was wondering if you were going to say that this time. Yeah. Hi, I'm the Black Jackal. I am the founder and former CEO of the Southern Legion, also running for CPM1. That's about it.
And Zatara.
Hey guys, my name is Zatara Rought. I am the CEO of Fatal Absolution and transitioning CEO back from Last of Dust, and I am also running for CPM1.
Good deal. Glad to have you guys all on tonight, and so we'll kind of jump right into it. What I kind of teed up for you first is like sort of what have we been doing in game lately? Like what are the things we've been trying, and I'll kind of start it off to kind of get the ball rolling. And literally, this is just kind of time we can riff off of each other and figure out if we're all trying the same things or maybe we're seeing some things we want to pick up from each other. So just to lead it off real quick, I want to give a total shout out to Gimbal, who also plays as Starfire Revo and Dust. He runs an awesome podcast, the Boots on the Ground podcast, and I'm totally stealing one of his ideas that I talked to him about. He got me sunk into really putting some SP into labs and specifically small rail turrets and the commando suits just for working AV. Just because we know that right now AV versus vehicles, that's a pretty touchy subject for a lot of people. And depending on where you're at or what corp you're in, you always run into a problem. Do you have the right vehicle operators? And particularly with dropship pilots. And dropships are very difficult to bring down with the current AV suite that we have in game. So one of the things that Gimbal kind of keyed me onto, and he's a long time Lav and Commando user, he gave me a couple different fits to work on and some skill plans for small turrets. And what I found is that with one viable partner who knows how to read the map and like give you tactical directions, usually running a heavy suit with a forge or something like that, I can hop in a commando suit, bounce into my lab, that's basically kitted out with big boy scanners and proto small rail. And we have been able to slay ADSs, dropships, and halves pretty much at will. And it's a focused effort. It takes 2 guys, but it's kind of interesting. Like I'm a longtime AV player, and that's just something I wanted to kind of throw out there, that a lot of people use the lav as a throwaway transport, but when you use it for an offensive role and you actually skill into things and work your tactics around it, it's a really, really cheap and viable way of really harassing vehicles. Even if you don't kill a few, you'll definitely make it a little bit more interesting for tanks and ADSs that might be just tormenting you during a match. So that's one thing I've been trying. I'll just tee that up. Has anybody else kind of kick that one around or try that?
Personally, I have been.
Yeah.
Personally, I've been running around in Lav for a fair while. Since they buffed the small rail types, I've been doing the Lav AV crew, I suppose I'd call it, with myself and one other guy running around with the Lavs and doing AV. Generally, my partner's in a Sentinel suit with a forge gun, and I'm the one in the Commando.
Nice. I found that those small rail turrets just absolutely eat up dropships.
I wanted to put I've got a BPO LAV, so I've wanted to put on either state missile turrets or militia missile turrets onto that because they're by far the best anti-infantry weapon. I don't know how to do against other vehicles though.
I've been raped, like absolutely dominated a few times lately by small rail turrets on labs, just heading into ambush. People just sit on the perimeter with labs and just wait, focused at crucial points, and they've just just mauled me a few times.
Well,
the last time I saw Lav use like this was actually during the replication, building that 2-stage map. They used to use them to choke points and have the guys sit on the back with them. Since then, I haven't really seen them that often, and they just made a big resurgence recently.
Well, I think people realize that the fire rate on the small rails is pretty damn high, considering how much damage it does. You can pretty much down most suits in one hit, so you get a good gunner, you can mow people down pretty quick if your aim is good.
And the alpha is much less of them too, like compared to a tank.
There's a lot of tank users that have small railguns on there, especially large railgun users. And they'll just switch them out to kill the infantry.
Oh, I've been seeing that. I didn't understand the thought behind it. I just thought like the driver disappeared.
Well, no, I think there's 2 things going on. One, the small rail turrets are just a much more effective turret right now until they buff the small blaster turret, which really should be the king of anti-infantry work for your vehicle.
That's actually the intention of the small blaster, was to be the king of anti-infantry.
It's just the hit detection on it is shoddy. I mean, like it used to have a small amount of splash damage, and you could just aim at their feet and just kill them that way. But they took it out around 1.6, I want to say.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, basically, an advanced like AR is better to use than a heavy machine gun.
Why not just use small missiles, because they do about the damage of a shotgun with splash damage, and they fire faster from farther away.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd say about the small, I've tried to use the small missile turrets before, and like on a guy that actually put some skill in, like he had proto missile turrets. I didn't see any difference in effect until you got to proto when we were doing AV work, and even then, it was really only effective against labs. And that's the one thing I like about the small rail setup on my lab, is that it's equally effective against labs, infantry, dropships, and to be honest with you, if you get behind a tank and you're chasing a tank, you can really chew them up. You probably won't kill them unless they're already damaged, but you can really put a hurting on them with that small rail if you've got a good gunner that knows how to manage the heat on the weapon. So we've found that, like, we've literally done the Starsky and Hutch chase, chasing guys down and just absolutely pummeling them with those small rails. But
nice.
Go ahead, Pokey.
I'm just thinking it's nice that the travel time on the rails, I'm not even sure if there is one for the small rails, but it's significantly less than the missiles. That's why I like them, because you aren't dealing with sometimes glitchy travel time, trying to lead targets and whatnot. The rail just hits where you want it to go, and that's my primary enjoyment out of using it as an anti-infantry weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only thing I ask about any of the small rails is that, for the love of God, put a reticle on that thing. That's not just a freaking dot, but that's my own personal beef. So we'll move on. Zell, what do you think, man? What have you been kicking around in game?
I'm still rolling the forge guns I've been rolling for the last couple weeks. I'm enjoying the fact that I can finally kind of start to get revenge on some of the tankers after many months. But I tried the plasma cannon. I was not impressed at all. It looked like from that spreadsheet though that they're looking at still buffing it even more. So maybe it'll get some use, and I won't have wasted those skill points. But I look forward to a proper noob tube that is somehow still balanced. But we'll see.
Fair enough, brother. Hey, real quick, go ahead, Arya. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say that getting a weapon like the plasma cannon, I do think that there's this very narrow band between being incredibly useless and incredibly overpowered.
Plasma
Like
cannon
mini
is so
weapons.
awesome.
Hey, real quick, sorry. Are you using just the standard forge gun, or are you messing around with the assault or the breach?
Personally, I prefer the standard one. I do like being able to move, and I do like being able to hold it for the right moment. I think that the other two, I think that those two limitations are quite crippling. I'm trying to remember who it was, but I actually had one conversation where someone was suggesting they should remove the standard forge gun, because it's overpowered in the way that it works. I mean, in like the whole thing is way back when in Chromosome, I did a lot of sniping, and the forge gun has, from a practical sense, almost to the range of a sniper, it seems, and I can also kill vehicles with it. And it's about as accurate as a sniper rifle too. So it's kind of it certainly has its elements of being overpowered.
Yep, I think you're spot on with that. Aeon, what do you think, man? What have you been up to?
Well, I since 1.7 I had shelved my AV fits, and with Hotfix Alpha, I took them off the shelf, tried them out again, but it's frustrating. Mostly because I was in the shield tanks that were moving too quick to do any real damage to them, and armor tanks which were just rep through them anyway. So, but after I got through that little, I actually started running the Caldari Assault with shield extenders and regulators, and yeah, honestly, I actually kind of like it because I don't have the speed limitations. I mean, there's definitely a noticeable time to kill difference. I'm not gonna lie, but it's like my gun game is good enough that I can actually make do with it and still come out with a positive KDR, unless I'm going up against like proto heavies or something. But yeah, I've been trying out the shield tanking sort of thing, and getting into that, and I want to see how it works out with Hotfix Bravo. So
that's a pretty good point you just brought up with the regulators. I mean, we'll get into that with the Hotfix Bravo, but I've always ran regulators. I've tried to pure shield tank. It's really hard. But one thing I'd say is that whatever the work they did with the reactive armor plates and the ferro skill, that was legit, because I can actually put a complex reactive plate on, and it doesn't eat just an ungodly amount of CPU and PG, and that's a pretty handy little throwdown if you're a Logi, if you're running like a Cal, or if you're running any kind of Caldari suit. That's an actual handy module now that actually is cost efficient to use. So you bring up a good point about using different mods now that the hotfix are going in. Let's see. And Pokey, how about you, brother? What have you been up to?
I have been playing with the commandos and having a hell of a time. It's been awesome. Specifically, spec'd into it just so I could use the plasma cannon, which is the goofiest, most fun I've ever had with a weapon in Dust so far. I think despite Soraya's dislike of it, the plasma cannon's actually almost viable with the commandos too. That reload bonus really kind of helps, and the Galente damage bonus is pretty sweet. So I've been having fun with that. Hotfix Alpha was a lot of fun. I like to run nothing but reps on my commando suit, and the bonuses to the buff to the plasma rifle and whatnot. That was all really good stuff to see. So I've been having a lot of fun just trying goofy fits out, and trying to break the usual mold of stack on HP and go for it. So I've been having a lot of fun just messing around pretty much.
Have you tried putting a shotgun on your commando?
I did it first, and I just the inability to close the distance just made it too hard to use. It really wasn't my play style. I much preferred having the short to medium range assault rifle and the plasma cannon for AV and infantry.
No
Shotgun's just
knives.
too tough to use.
I actually watched a guy. It was in a pub domination. I was just messing around. I had my 6 on him, repping him, and once he figured out that I had a rep tool, I didn't realize this, but he switched his plasma rifle to his shotgun, and he walked down the hall of the Galente research facility, the underground portion. He would literally walk right into fire, and then the minute he got into effective range with that shotgun, he would just like slamming people. He would clean hollies like that. It was actually pretty impressive, to be honest with you. I was just kind of curious if you'd messed around with it.
Yeah, I could see that working pretty well in certain situations like that where it's in closed space and the enemy can't strafe around you and whatnot. You're just plowing through it. I can see that working pretty well. I'm typically more in the medium to open areas, but yeah, I mean that would be something worth trying.
Jackal, what was that?
Pardon, what was that?
Oh no, I thought you were talking. I'm sorry, brother.
No, in the background there.
Yeah, okay. And on that note, we'll move to Jackal. What have you been trying out in game lately, man?
Actually, I've been more the target dummy than anything else. Being a vehicle driver, obviously, with a few of the new vehicle changes, those LAVs running around as well with the railguns on the back, stuff like that. All the new vehicle methods start to come in a bit more again now. I've more been on the receiving end than on the actual dealing out end. However, things like dual AV commandos, stuff like that, trying to make AVs relatively viable, stuff like that. Yeah, my ADS has been put on the back burner for the moment. I actually ran out of ISK, surprisingly enough. I bought about 100 of them, and I've actually run out now.
That'll do it.
But other than that, no, I've generally been on the receiving end of most of the things, except for when I'm doing my LAV AV team thing. That's pretty much it. I'm more of a vehicle driver, so I'm happy to be target practice for anyone who happens to be going around testing out these AV stuff.
Yep, and let's see. We'll hit Zatara, and then we'll circle back for something with Aeon real quick. Zatara, go ahead.
Well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I actually grabbed Proficiency 3 in plasma cannons. It's actually one of the last 3 weapons that I didn't have Proficiency 3, and I still don't have any points in laser rifle, and I only have level 1 in scrambler. So I've been using plasma cannons a lot. I have to say that one bug where you try to swap weapons and it just delays how long it takes. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but that one has been the bane of my existence in using a plasma cannon this last week.
Oh yes. Try it with a rail rifle.
Oh, the struggle is real, man. I'm telling you. Oh, the struggle is real.
You got paid to do that. That's bullshit. You got paid to say that.
I was actually
you straight got paid to say that.
I was gonna hold off until the shout out to the end, but he beat me to it because he's cheap and he just wanted to get that mill before I did. That's really mean.
I will say I've also been using I did spec up to level 2 Galmando, and I'm working on getting my Galmando up to Proto, so that'll probably be the next thing that I go up to. But it's also been really fun to just use my Galente Scout and see the difference. The rep, like 2 complex reps, and I've got 21 reps is just, it's insane. And the whole cat and mouse game that's become more evident because cloaks and dampening got changed has been really, really rewarding for me because it changes a lot, especially the way I approach ambushes. There's just been a lot of times where I've had Boromir or somebody scan me down and kill me, and then I've had to come in with double damps and see whether he's running that, and then if he does kill me and consistently finds me, I have to come in with triple damps, and it just gets really, really fun. And also just to see sort of people choosing on min scouts whether they want to have tank or whether they whether it's worth it to run 1 or 2 damps or go fully damped. It's nice to have that choice. So that's really been what I've been focusing on.
Cool deal. And just for the record, everybody in the in-game chat or correction, our Skype channels and our text channels has clearly pointed out that I've left out one of the valued members of our expert panel here in our CPM1 candidate, Aeon Amadi, for an intro. So I will circle back to Aeon, who was apparently taking a hiatus when we went through the intros. So that's my bad. So Aeon, if you can give a quick intro now, everybody knows who you are, but you're going to do it anyway, because that way I won't be ripped mercilessly in the text.
Yeah, Aeon Amadi, NPC Galente Corp, and hell, I might as well just say it since I was going to wait for the shout out, but might as well. If CCP comes out with Hotfix Bravo on Thursday, it will be the best birthday present ever. Just saying.
Word.
Aww.
Yeah, we'll have a Hotfix Bravo party.
Get on CCP.
I'm a huge fan. I just want to let you know, though, that CCP knew that not only was it Father's Day, but it was a Friday, and released an Eve patch this week. So my Mac client is like shitting the bed. So good luck with that.
It's because you have a Mac.
Watch it come out on Friday, my graduation.
Ah, nicely done. Okay. Well, I think we've kind of circled around kind of the wagon here with everybody in terms of like kind of what we've been kicking around in game and stuff like that. And what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You skipped me.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Alright, last SP event, I finally got around to unlocking the 20th suit. So I now have all 20 basic standard role suits. I've got every weapon to at least level 3 operation, and I capped out on drop suit upgrades a long time ago. So I've really been trying out every single suit with every single possible combination of weapons. And I've been finding since alpha that I'm afraid it's going to be way too overpowered, especially using my Galante Commando with a plasma cannon.
So you're finding like the plasma cannon with the Galmando suit is going to be overpowered?
No. I mean like the plasma cannon for AV and
Oh.
the AR to protect yourself.
Yeah. No, I tell you, I thought I had the winning combination with the Calmando with my rail rifle and a swarm as a standoff sort of Overwatch kind of guy. But the problem with that is that you don't get any of the damage bonuses for like a Caldari missile weapon.
Yeah, Minmatar gets the bonus to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's one thing that I think even CCP Rattati said was that they were looking at juggling some of the damage bonus or giving like a flat AV bonus to commandos. Some crazy.
I've also been playing with the Assault Forge gun a lot. I really like it.
Nice. But hey, real quick, can you explain to the folks out there what the difference in mechanics is between the Assault Forge and the standard forge that Soraya uses?
Right, the standard forge has like a moderate charge up time, and then you can hold the charge and aim and target where you want to shoot it at. The Assault Forge has a faster charge up time, but as soon as it reaches the charge, it just shoots it off automatically. So the Assault Forge also has higher damage, which gives it higher DPS. But the problem is that a lot of the time, if you're going against a dropship or a tank on steroids with a fuel injector, sometimes it's hard to keep your aiming down and track them.
I totally see that.
With the standard, for instance, I can take my time to, when I'm fighting a dropship, 80% of the time I'm hitting the engine pods, which have, it takes increased damage when hit there, and I can sit there and line that up comfortably.
Yeah, I like it just because for a long time, I was telling people that it's easier to forge snipe than it is to use a sniper rifle. So it's just like I would take a militia forge gun and I'd outdo people with kills per match. And I've found out that I really like the assault variant because it's just so good at targeting infantry. And the same with keeping up with vehicles. But that's my personal take on it.
It's kind of important. It's actually kind of a neat way to look at it. See, I don't use forge guns at all. Like I only do like the Mauler suit, the free suits that I get occasionally. So I've never really messed around with it, but I could totally see where it could be a pretty fun style of play using that. I've talked to a couple of people who use the assault forges, and they kind of very similar feel on it. That it's a little bit more useful for anti-vehicle, anti-infantry.
A lot of the people that know me pretty well know that I've got over half a dozen alts, all on passive SP. So I've been playing. I've got one character with every proto suit and the matching proto weapon. So I've been a forge gunner for about 10 months. But it's pretty new for the specific character, Appia.
Okay, yeah. Hey, has anybody used a breach forge? Just random question.
Yeah.
I like being able to move while I charge things, and being a stationary target does not make me happy against vehicles.
You just bunny hop, man. That's like the best thing. I love being on the ground with the breach. People are like, you get a kill on the kill feed, and they're like, oh, you're stuck there, and then you just start hopping around and you jump to move.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's gonna be ridiculous.
I'm a mean person.
Yeah, cardiac regulators just to keep
That's
moving.
one of those things they fix. You shouldn't be able to bunny hop with a breach forge. That's just ridiculous.
Because the heavies are so good at jumping, they can stumble slightly forward. That's really
everybody jumps at the same
got
speed
a good,
though.
like 3 or 4 inch vertical leap.
And emergent gameplay, Jason. Emergent gameplay.
It's not even a jump. They're tripping upwards. It doesn't even count as a jump. You can't even climb over 6-inch ledge.
You still go like 5 meters, like in a forward direction.
Jihad deeping is emergent gameplay. Bunny hopping while forge gunning is not.
I will
It'll
say
catch
this,
on. It'll catch on.
Watching somebody bunny hop on a rooftop when I'm looking at them through my rail rifle scope, it is pretty funny. I have to admit.
So, first question: does anybody understand the logic behind the breach forge gun? Preventing you from moving when you're charging in.
It does a lot of damage.
I get the gameplay aspect. I'm talking about.
There is no lore that explains most of the things in Dust. Just leave it there.
Listen, the charge it rattles the weapon so much. You have to plant your feet and not move, or else you'll just fall over. Obviously.
Yeah, you gotta really dig in. It's your drop suit. If you have a breach, it gets like if you've seen on those construction trucks where they have those additional supports they deploy to the sides to hold it in place. Your drop suit gets those.
Nah, I think I got it. It's like your breach forge gun is about to cause so much devastation that if you are to take your feet off the ground, it sets off a remote explosive inside the forge gun.
If you take your feet off the ground, the blast from the breach forge will blow you backwards across the map and to your death.
That would be awesome.
I would pay good money if
that is immersive gameplay. We could finally get on top of the rooftops without needing a dropship.
Believe it or not.
Indeed.
Total on sequitur. I had a guy actually telling me that he wished that the breach forge gun would deal damage to the player every time it shot, but let them be able to move. Like it was like literally like you took a small heat damage every time you shot the breach forge gun, but they could move like they could with a normal one. I thought there was something kind of interesting to that because it's like you're literally like risk versus reward. Like how often can you shoot before it like fries your shield and goes into armor or something stupid like that?
That would be an interesting idea for a makeshift Amar heavy weapon. Honestly.
Yeah, I had been talking about that for a while. The heavy laser being
slow bleed.
Yeah, it does instant damage opposed to the forge requiring charge time. But after a while, you just start basically lighting on fire and taking constant damage. So you can use it, but at a cost, opposed to the less costly forge gun that takes a delay.
Well, CCP has made it kind of like they kind of hinted that they're open to making other weapon types, as long as it doesn't like require new assets or coding to be put in. So
sure.
I mean, it's possible, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you could just take the existing laser rifle. You've got an overheat mechanic that causes damage. You just have it proc more often for less damage over a long period of time. I mean, the code's there. You just got to tweak it and slap it into a not so heavy looking weapon. But I mean, who cares with the art style at this point?
Which, on that aspect, like one of the things that we were kind of joking around about was like a repair tool that uses the same model but doesn't actually repair armor. Instead, it just like kickstarts your shield recharge.
Yeah, I've been kicking that. Sure. I like that idea a lot, actually. I'm a huge fan of that.
Like, it wouldn't actually recharge your shields. It would just,
it basically act like an energizer or a remote recharger. It's exactly what they have in Eve. I think that'd be pretty legit, like for a Cal-Logi. And so that gives you another variant of a repper, and then you could give like one that's like 40 and 40 or something like that to shields and armor or some jazz. So I'm a big fan of anything that gives you options, and I think Pokey's right. That's something you do effectively. You're not changing any of the artwork, and all you're doing is tweaking shit in a spreadsheet. It's literally you're giving it different tags in the database, and that would be very doable. Okay, so real quick, what I'd like to do is kind of take a few minutes and talk to Appia specifically, since she's new on the show and she's a CPM1 candidate. And kind of give her a couple minutes to kind of talk to the audience a little bit about where she sees herself as being value added to the CPM and why folks should basically vote for her. So I'll kind of start it off. We'll give you just a minute, kind of your total soapbox, say whatever you want, and I'll just follow on with a couple pretty basic CPM candidate questions that we usually ask everybody, so that we can kind of get the audience to have a little bit of better feel for you. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So anything you want, Appy, if you can just kind of tell us why you're running for the CPM and why you think you can help.
I just like to I mean, this is kind of a shout out at the same time, but I've been a part of the Scout Registry, which was an effort by Shadi Go Bang back in 1.1 Uprising, because the suit was just underperforming so bad, the two suits, the Galente and Mimitar, that we got together and we formed a list of everybody. He did a really good job of keeping track of like KDRs and total kills for everybody that signed the list. We essentially just became a community in itself that was basically a support group for people that played with the scout suit. At the end of December and in January, there's the Nova Knife event. That brought people in, and there's also the announcement the scouts were getting a buff. And then 1.8 came out, and the scouts are overperforming. And that's really, really odd for us. But recently we had a new person join the community. The name was Jason Pale-Eye. He was former Dust University, currently in OSG. And he came to us. He came to us like, "Hey guys, I want to try out this Mimitar suit. I want to try knifing people." And then we came with him with a good reception, and he kind of took to it. And I was really excited to listen to his story as of his progression from the basic Mimitar and basic knives to the ZN28s. Like, that was all really cool. But he's a newer player. He's low SP. He doesn't have the 15 million SP invested in drop suit upgrades. He doesn't have a proto. He didn't. I don't know what his current SP level's at. Didn't have a proto suit. Didn't have the proto weapons. But he didn't have the proto cloak. So Hotfix Alpha came, and because he can't run proto gear, his Mimitar Scout, the Knifer, the gameplay itself has just pretty much been killed because the suit has so low HP and it's all about alpha damage. And then I'm just like, it's so sad to watch a playstyle completely die. I was a sniper in Chromosome, and I used to stay up high, and I'd do Overwatch. I'd call out, "Hey guys, people are coming over from over here," or I would take out people, high priority targets. But come Uprising, the change to rendering system, I lost that role. I was a shotgun scout as well. At 1.0 Uprising, 1.1, the way rotation speed was, it was just way too slow to use the shotgun in close quarters combat. It wasn't until 1.2 when they changed the aiming and made it a little faster that I returned to the role. And I'm pretty experienced in watching like focuses that people have die out because of changes made to the game. And the reason I want to be on the CPM is because I want to do the best to convey that certain changes are hurting the younger, the lower SP players. Specifically, the reason I can do this, and it's not just like I'm listening to people, it's not just that, but I've also stated that I've got 7 alt characters. My personal character has been playing since January 10th last year, so quite a lot of SP. My secondary character is at 15 million, and my other ones are about 5 million, a little higher, a little lower. So I like to play with the other ones just to go out there, play with my friends, play with new people, and just experience the game from a lower SP level. And you really get a different view on the game rather than just listening to players with old characters that are teaching new people. Like right now, it really feels like the game is go proto or go home, and I really wanna protect the low SP players and give room for new people to join.
That's I think that's one thing that sets you apart from a lot of the other candidates. Just this is just sort of my personal take on it. You've got more of a rep of kind of working one-on-one with people, and a lot of people think you're a scout specialist, and you're obviously very knowledgeable about that. If anybody has read the forums, you'll see Appia's posts in the forums that are incredibly detailed. They can go toe to toe with anybody. You may not agree with her, but she'll bring the knowledge on you and the math on you if you're not just to help with the arguments. But you do run a lot of things, a lot of different playstyle suits. In fact, I think the first time I ever played against you, run around in a heavy suit, which surprised the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would just kind of offer is that my personal experience with Appy is that she is an incredibly effective person in a small group, working like in a squad or one-on-one with people, trying to coach or teach new players or even veteran players who just want to learn something new about the game. So that's, you kind of bring a very different angle to it than I thought you would with your discussion about how you've seen the changes over time, and sometimes negatively affect, and let's be honest, there are some positive effects to different people, because usually if somebody gets nerfed, there's a buff to somebody else.
Oh yeah, like at the same time, like I'm really excited for the AR. Like I stayed away from it for a long time because the Duval AR was just this evil monster that destroyed and dominated the battlefield. But as new weapons were added, yeah, it kind of took a hit. And like low SP players, they couldn't keep up with just the rail rifle and the combat rifle were so amazing. But with this new update with Alpha, the changes to the AR, and Bravo is gonna change it a little more. Like, yeah, that's amazing for those longtime players that are just casual and don't log in every day.
Yep, I think that's spot on. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a couple kind of some basic candidate questions. Again, just kind of let everyone get to know you.
Yeah.
What are the, probably, let's say, anything that's not been listed in either the Hotfix or Alpha or Hotfix Bravo? What are the 2 or 3 kind of quick things that you would really like to see them introduce into Dust or tweak in Dust? What are, like, literally like your top 2 or 3?
I'd like to have just an active dampener. Like they've divorced the cloak from dampening. They've tried to do that. Rattati tried to do that, and the people working with them. But I'd like to have this item that doesn't make you invisible, that takes up an equipment slot instead of a module slot, that prevents you, like that hides you from active scanners.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm an absolute huge fan of having active modules on infantry characters. I think the cloak is the only one I can think of, and I love that mechanic. I think if we could export more of that to the infantry, that'd be a great idea. Anything else?
I'm certain that I have ideas and I've posted them places, but off the top of my head, no. And I think I have to give credit to a character last with 2 L's for coming up with that idea or introducing it to me first.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So we know that there's been some discussion about that there will be limited contact with the Legion development cycle for CPM1. But I think one of the things, this is kind of branch into 2 questions. Like the first part of it is, what's like one thing, if you could only pick one thing that you really wanted to work with the devs working on Legion on, like what's the one facet or sort of the one thing you would like to hang your personal hat on that you worked to make right or help to shape in Legion? What would that be?
I'd say graphics, the rendering system, and no glare. Like, sniping was my favorite thing to do back in Chromosome, and it's just been hurt by Z fighting. The interaction of player models on surface infrastructure, how they'll bleed into each other, and as well with glare, I think that breaks immersion from the super sci-fi setting we have, where we're not actually using our eyes, but we're using high-tech scanners to see through.
Yeah, no, I've always wondered that.
I would actually argue that glare actually adds to the immersion. Using glare is actually a tactic.
Yeah, I rather like that as well.
I think it could be, but I think she's got a good point. We don't even have night
that's where we
vision in
difference.
the game yet.
Maybe a vision mode or something that you can switch through.
Oh
maybe.
yeah, also graphics, lighting inside buildings, and just lighting in general. Sometimes that like in the orbital artillery outpost, there are places where their light doesn't exist, and that if you turn up your brightness settings, either on your TV or in game, all it does is make it a brighter color black. And I'd really like to see like actual shading instead of just darkness.
Okay, fair point. And so I'll kind of bridge into kind of my next question. The CPM is going to be 7 folks. That's a small team, basically roughly the size of a death squad, and you're going to be working with another team on the other side of the globe, and you're kind of working in a distributed manner, obviously. much like we do in game or on this podcast or whatever. But one of the critical things is the ability to work with people and to build teams and build organizations. And I'll ask you exactly like I asked Zatara when he first came on. Like, you've got an incredible rep as an individual player, and you have a frictious history, just like Zatara did, and some other folks did. If you're a big enough personality to be a candidate for CPM, you've probably had some beefs with people in the past, and that's a very natural thing. There's very few people that don't. Can you talk a little bit about how you would want to integrate into part of a CPM team, no matter who's on it, because you don't get to pick who's in that squad. It's sort of who the player base picks. How would you, taking what you've learned over the last year or two, working with inside the Dust community as a player, how would you integrate into a CPM team?
Basically what I've said in a few threads someplace, I come off across as like, that singular entity. But a lot of the times I really I take a step back on the features and ideas and the stuff that I post, like the individual things, and focus more on being the spokesperson for other people. I'd say, hey guys, here's a topic. What do you think? In smaller groups, because that's what I do best with, is a small group. And see what they go for it. Or like, hey guys, what do you think about this idea? Somebody should like go with it if they like it. Personally, and then talking to the small group, a lot of that's pretty easy. I'm a playtester for a couple games. They're mostly pen and paper RPGs, and I'm pretty good at talking to, like, here are suggestions to developers, and doing a little group communication with that before we send in, like, this was just a singular opinion and this is the group's opinion on it. So I figure that the CPM, the actual council itself, will be working in a manner similar to collecting the opinions of playtesters.
That's pretty fair.
Yeah, and then delivering like a unified statement. I like to take from like the Supreme Court of the U.S. how they'll have, like, at the end of a verdict, they'll have the majority rule and then the minority, and they'll present how the people that disagreed, how they feel, and I feel like I can either help with or take a part in writing up pieces to deliver to the developers.
Okay, I mean that's probably a pretty good way to approach it. I've actually talked to a CSN member that says that they do something kind of like that, where everybody's opinions are laid out, but it's sort of like an issue discussion recommendation. But at least the devs get to see sides of the conversation when they turn their products in. So that's a pretty good idea. So that's kind of all my specific questions for you. Anything else you want to say? Any other shout outs? Why should somebody vote for you for CPM1? And then we'll kind of move on.
Because I've got some of the most diverse skill set and play styles. I know each and every one of them, and if you have a problem with if you think there's something unbalanced about your gameplay experience, I can help work with you to either advocate a change in it, or maybe even help each person come up with a way to continue playing that same way in a way that doesn't seem so unbalanced.
Okay, I got you. And guys, everybody out there listening, Appia Vibbia for CPM1. She's another really sharp candidate that we've got that's rounding out the field. And that's one thing I just, kind of as a player, as somebody not running for CPM, like other than Derry, the only person in the room not running. It's really good to know that whoever gets in, whatever 7 folks get in, I'm pretty confident there's more than 7 really good candidates out there. Me personally, I think that there's some that are better or best, but there's a lot of good candidates. So I think as a player base, we're in good shape with folks like Appia and the guys in the room that are getting in. So with that, we'll kind of transition on. I kind of want to tee this one up. And this is where all you guys can sharpen your spreadsheets and get out your slide rules and your little steely-eyed Google foo. But we'll talk a little bit about Hotfix Bravo. What we've got so far is the proposed sort of spreadsheet version that CCP Rattati has put out. There's a lot of changes in it. Like a lot of different things are kind of queued up on the table right now. A lot of small changes. We've hinted around at some of them, some plasma rifle buffs, some PLC things. I think there's some things about remote explosives on the way. And there's also some discussion about a little bit of suit module or suit resource balancing that may occur during CPM or Hotfix Bravo. So what I'd like to do is just kind of open the table up to the group and just, what do you guys think that you're either most looking forward to or you are most concerned about with what you've seen so far from Hotfix Bravo? And I'll open up the floor to that.
I'd have to say the change to the plasma cannon. What is it? It's the fire interval. Essentially what's changing is the stats on the sheet say it's changing from 1.5 to 0.5. That's actually not going to change like the reload time, the charge up time. What's going to change is that after you fire it, when you can switch weapons. And one of the most difficult parts to using the plasma cannon is that you need a sidearm or you need to be on a commando suit with another light weapon. And it's going to make it a whole lot easier to shoot off that round and then switch to your gun. And that's definitely what I'm most excited for.
I want to be excited for it, but I don't think it's going to offer much to it as an AV weapon, which, I'm glad CCP finally came out of the closet and actually said that it was an AV weapon, or it was intended to be, because they had mentioned that in, FanFest 2013 and then never said it again because, it hadn't been touched since it was released.
I agree with you, Aeon.
That, I gotta say that, man, that was the most frustrating thing. It was having the plasma cannon and Uprising 1.1, and then from that point on, they never touched it again until Hotfix Alpha. It is ridiculous.
You're still not going to be soloing any competent tanker. The only people you're going to be killing are either A, if your equipment slot is remotes, or if you found somebody who got trapped against a wall or something.
Yeah, but that falls into the whole thing about you have to kind of pick and choose how you want to do your AV, which is really, really frustrating at points. Mostly because if you go commando, you get the 10% damage bonus, right, on the suit, and you get the benefit of having another light weapon, but you don't have access to AV grenades. Or if you go assault, you lose the second light weapon and get the AV grenades, but you also lose a lot of defense and the damage bonus to the plasma cannon. So it's it's a major trade-off on either way. It's kind of crazy.
I really think it's best for taking on LAVs. Those guys that try to run you over, play with the murder taxi, and just drive around you. It's great for that, and it also gets you a lot of points.
Sure, if it fired faster. I mean, the projectile is just damn slow.
That's the problem with the AV there. It's too slow. You need a big pile of shots to take out vehicles with it, and it's just plasma cannon is just so freaking slow.
But a lot of people say that it's supposed to have this really high alpha damage, but a forge gun still outranks it, which confounds me because even though it's a heavy weapon, it has a magazine, it has way longer range, and it has a way faster fire rate. Well, not fire rate.
The alpha damage is actually higher now than on the standard forge gun.
In edge cases, sure.
No, I mean the Allotech plasma cannon does more damage than the proto forge gun standard variant.
Right, but if you look at Gazbaran's little spreadsheet, it's still not worth it. It's just not.
I'll tell you what I'm happy
about.
about.
DPS over time with the magazine, I would imagine, regardless of whether the damage is actually higher stat-wise, DPS over time, you're still going to do a lot more with the forge gun.
Yeah, that being said, though, I'm really looking forward to the armor repairer changes for the tanks, mostly because of the fact that, the plasma cannon doesn't do enough DPS, and the big problem with it in Hotfix Alpha is that it can't apply enough DPS to actually beat those reppers. So I don't think that the plasma cannon is going to be doing any more or less better than it was in Hotfix Alpha, but I think the changes to the repairers is definitely going to make a difference.
I do not like those changes to repair.
That's not necessarily a plasma cannon specific issue though, because anything has trouble taking out a triple red Madrigal at the moment.
I realize that, but
I really wish those numbers weren't changed, but it was just made an active module again instead of this constant super high permanent passive reps.
I think it just increases the stacking penalty. That's what I can't figure out. If the issue is always when you have more than one thing of whatever that thing is that makes the game becomes basically overpowered or near overpowered, increase the penalty to having more of that one thing. That's
CCP Ritati did actually mention something about that. He said that doesn't work well without the percentage-based modules. So since it's a flat bonus, a flat rate, it's actually better to reduce the actual effectiveness of the module overall.
I'm a little concerned how that's going to actually affect fits that have single reps, though, opposed to the double or triple. I don't want to see the multi-rep be the only viable fit because you need to have multiple reps now to actually tank damage properly. But we'll see. It's really got to be in the practice, not the paper.
I mean, they work decent as active modules, but I think the reason they changed them to passive was because of like the learning curve of like getting used to passive reps on infantry and then jumping to tanks with active reps. It was just, I could see how it could be confusing.
Well, I mean, if there was like some sort of tutorial in game to teach people how to use things.
But there's not, and there probably never will be.
Yeah.
I'm just went with the Bravo. Yeah, you guys are right.
Yeah, I tried starting 3 times. So the thing that I'm really excited about is actually the death of a role. It looks like they're gonna kill off the throw an RE and detonate it concept and make REs actually a strategic weapon.
As a prevalent, frisbee thrower, and I'm also prevalent in the I've been an activate for taking that away at the same time. I'm also really excited for that. And they're not changing the distance you can throw it, so I think they did it the right way.
I'm on the fence about it. I didn't really care either way because I didn't think it was that big of a problem. Never experienced it enough.
You have to kill thieves lately.
It's a huge problem in PC.
You should play against Jolly Roger.
Jolly Roger will do it. You will have a match with Jolly Roger, and you will be sitting there on the forums screaming nerf REs for the next week.
He's not the progenitor, but he's definitely the expert on it.
I think my problem with it is that it kind of effectively made the locust grenade kind of obsolete because you're in most cases better off just chucking an RE in there and blowing it up rather than throwing a grenade. So, we'll kind of see if that brings back more of a use of the locust grenades. Despite CCP's war on grenades lately, I don't understand that, but it's happening.
Because I've been playing PC for, over a year, I've been an advocate against using locust grenades in that because someone in this channel, Zatara, really just, they're for team killing. They don't have a place in PC.
Yeah, they do if you know how to throw them.
What I really would like to see in Hotfix Charlie is flux grenades with friendly fire and high sec.
Oh, that'd be legit.
Like, I have a video on YouTube actually of I was the only guy on my team with flux grenades. I clear out this hall, it was the Galente Research Facility. That underground tunnel where they always just stuff it full of threw 2 fluxes in there, cleared it out. We run in, and then before I can even blink, my team is already stacking equipment all over the place, and I couldn't do anything about it. And it's frame rate dip.
I would love that so much.
I just stand there and spam grenades just to burn them out, but that's a waste of time. We need some way to deal with that and not stand there for 10 minutes doing it.
Here's something actually Appy and I went back and forth on the forums about, and I just kind of open it up. This is usually probably a better discussion live than doing it via text on the forum. So my thought on REs because I'm not a huge fan of it being essentially a better core locust grenade. But I want you to be able to use it as a remote explosive. So my thought was, to me, the core problem is that it's too good at anti-infantry work and good enough, and in the right hands, probably not too good, but just right as an anti-vehicle weapon. So what I thought they should do is actually have an anti-infantry variant that was about as powerful as a core locust. Which is still pretty legit. I mean, that will kill 90% of the suits out there if you're within inside the blast radius. Well, not 90% now, but that'll kill the majority of suits if you're inside the blast radius. So then have a packed version with a much smaller blast radius that was much higher damage. That was is really centered on AV work.
Let me just chime in real quick. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard is, as being a CPM candidate, the most important question you can ask CCP is why. And hearing that, I can't help but ask, why not just use a core locust grenade?
Well, I think the point is just the mechanics of how you use an RE. Like you can actually set it, trap it, and detonate
Choke
on
point.
command. Yeah.
Yep, and you don't have to cook it. Nades in
And you can
PC
walk
for
away,
me
you
got
go the other
replaced
side
with
of the map.
REs the moment that I realized that I can throw an RE and it's like
Well,
compared
That
to a
took him
cooking a
way
nade.
too long, by the way.
It's one thing to address
No,
it
because
as
well,
a
the
point
difference was
defense.
Appia. Hold on one second. What the difference, Appia, was that core locust used to be really great at
Because
clearing
they're doing
catwalks.
headshot damage.
No, well, no, clearing catwalks. You could throw them onto places like onto the catwalks on the rings map during PCs, and so if people wanted to camp up there, you had an easy way to do it. You couldn't do that with REs, but when they changed it so that no nades except for Flux and Sleet can get up there,
Yeah, that one.
it just became a difference of the reason why I would use nades, like locust nades, became moot, unless there's like 4 or 5 heavies, just sitting in certain areas, choke points, and then you can RE them regardless.
Yeah,
so REs just overtook core locust in every way that made core locust unique.
Well, see, my point is, it's one thing if it's being used as point defense for an objective, but it's completely different if it's being thrown around like frisbees and grenades. So, I mean, yeah, if it's being used for point defense, hell yeah, sure, go for it.
Well,
I mean,
the
just
problem,
one thing.
Yeah, the problem you're running with is that the standard RE, like that I can get with one level put into it, is more deadly than a core locust grenade by far.
Twice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I
Well,
said,
not only that, but it's also you can drop it on the ground and it's waiting for it. It's a trap, like it's gonna wait for you. It's not like you throw a locust on the ground and it's gonna wait until the enemy rocks over it. Like it's got infinitely upside. Well, if you see it, yeah, but the number of times that I play PC where people don't, and now that you only have 2 flux as well, it's. I mean, well, no, there was. Wait a second. Am I saying this wrong? Was there always 2 flux?
No,
there
was
3.
There was 3, right?
That was the first nerf to grenades. They went from 3 to 2, and now they're looking at removing or increasing the nanite resupply cost or stripping that away entirely. And that was my other beef, by the way, about remotes is you can continually resupply those. Nobody's mentioned that. I always thought that grenades and REs should have a similar resupply cost because they're basically an explosive. It's just the arming mechanism that's different in terms of the gameplay mechanics.
They did have like nearly equal nanite costs, but now grenades cost more. That was Alpha that increased those, I believe.
I don't know. I have like mixed feelings about the fact that I mean, just even earlier, Jason, when you said, "Oh yeah, the RE weapon," and I think of myself like it's supposed to be an equipment. Is it, or is it supposed to be an equipment? Like that sort of conversation needs to be had. And
that's fair.
Give it a clear direction, because if it is supposed to be an equipment, then it perhaps needs much less splash damage, and it should simply be low enough splash that it is an AV weapon or situationally used on points. But I don't know. That's a whole different conversation.
I don't know. I think you actually just hit on in Aeon. You kind of keep me on. Is like you should ask me the why question. Well, I think in my head, a piece of equipment does a job. It does a specific job. Like a rep tool, a hive. Every piece of equipment has a very specific job. The RE by far can do the most roles, functions, or things that I can think of any of the equipment slots or any available equipment in the game right now. And I think that's the one thing that stands out is it's almost too good at too many things.
Well, technically, it's the only offensive equipment slot if you talk about like actual offensive capability, like being able to kill another player.
Well, I think that's actually an interesting way to look at it. I wonder if it'd be legit to say you can either carry a grenade or a remote explosive because it's in the same skill tree. It's not in the equipment skill tree.
I have a thread about that.
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I would go for that.
Anyway, guys, probably a good thing to move on from these because REs weren't the only thing changed in the Bravo.
What do you got, Jack?
Go ahead. I'm actually excited about the shield changes to the shield modules.
Dude.
They're actually making shield tank. They're trying to make shield tanking an actual viable option. I've had threads about this myself. I'm a shield tanker. I play Caldari in game. I'm a shield tanker, and I've seen so many times how many times it's your downtime is too large, and you don't have enough buffer to stay in the fight as long as armor tankers. So I'm glad they're actually giving it a shot trying to make shield tanking, for infantry anyway, quite a bit better.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, I'm not sure if you saw the stat proposals like when they first got released in the number spreadsheet, but the regulators were set to a negative 40% on the prototype. That actually came from a number of Skype conversations, and I honestly like ran the numbers on it, and it was awesome. Like everything about it just looked awesome. And then like later on, Ratatai actually dropped it to negative 30%, and I was just like, dude, no, you can't just buff it by 5% and expect it to make some huge difference. Like, have you seen the market data on these things?
Yeah, I have.
Regulators are
Yeah.
non-existent.
The regulators are actually a really good thing if they were viable. They're moving the prototype from 25% to 35%, which is a massive change, and it should help with the downtime quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean the standard and advanced still look like they suck, but the prototype looks definitely worth it.
So 35. That's the final number, right?
Yeah, it's the final proposed number that I've got in this thing here. Then we've also got our energizers, which they've only given about 5% at pro level, so it's not a huge buff.
Yeah, the energizers and recharges are actually pretty legit. The regulators have been really, if you think about it, that's really the linchpin to shield tanking. The buffer is always going to be negligible.
Well,
the downtime is what kills it really, because you can get up to like 100 HP a second recharge, but if you're behind cover, not getting hit for 6 seconds or something like that, or whatever it is the dead delay can be in some suits, that armor tanker who was trying to kill you will probably be around the corner by the time you pop back out, or by the time you actually start recharging your shield.
See, the thing about shield tanking is that you really can't look at it as a whole. Like, problems with shield tanking isn't related to shield tanking in and of itself. It's related to the suit mostly, because the Caldari Sentinel has no problem with downtime once it's depleted. We all know that. It's got a 1 second depleted downtime.
It does actually to a point, because that delay only happens when you actually hit 0. If you get hit again on armor, it goes back to the 4 to 6 second delay.
Well, hold on. Let me finish first. All right. The thing about it is the Sentinel and the Commando don't really have a necessary need for extenders, so you can load them up with rechargers and energizers all you want. The Scouts, on the other hand, completely different playstyle. You can't put a bunch of rechargers and energizers on a Scout and expect it to live. It's just not worth it. So you can't just look at shield tanking as a whole. You have to look at it as an individual suit basis, and then you have to modify it according to that.
Sure.
That's my theory, anyway.
I think you're onto it. I mean, the reality is shield tanking is a little bit. It's just more complex than armor tanking, because you're working through different variants. The only thing I just kind of offer on this one is that I tend to side with Jackal on this. Is to me, it's your active recharge is the absolute key to the suit. Now you were correct in that some of the suits are better at it than others, but I expect a Scout to have low buffer and high recharge no matter what. I'm kind of okay with that. But anything other than a Caldari Scout, shaky. And I would also offer that shield tanking is pretty important to the Mimitar suits. And I think we would all agree that of all the racial suits, they're probably the ones that traditionally have struggled the most. And particularly like the Mimitar Logi is kind of in a class of its own, but like all their other suits, sketchy.
Yeah, the Minmatar and the Amar always had like this weird sort of like kind of edge case scenario sort of thing, because I mean, you look at Caldari and Galente, and it's very, very clear cut on what they're supposed to do, at least right now. And you look at the Amar and the Minmatar, they've always been the ones that have been the most complained about for one reason or another. Minmatar usually because they can't tank worth a shit and their speed doesn't make up for it, and then the Amar because their speed it's like opposite ends of the spectrum, whereas the Galente and the Caldari are right in the center, and they're kind of well off. It's just an interesting little phenomenon.
Yeah, another thing I'm glad to see is
Okay, go ahead.
I was just saying, another thing I'm really glad to see with the shield tanking is the rework of the actual extenders. The increase in HP is nice, but also one of my biggest complaints has been the progression of HP values between standard, advanced, and proto, and that it was more of an exponential scale where you got a bigger jump between advanced and proto than you did through standard and advanced. And it looks like they've moved to more of a a linear scale now. So I think that's also going to help quite a bit, and maybe giving the shield tankers a little more HP to kind of give them a bit more of an edge to work with, rather than before it was pretty dismal on if it was even worth putting an extender on your suit. So
it was actually the same with the recharges as well. I was about to mention that both the extenders and the recharges had a delineated to make a bit more linear, whereas because recharges were 15, 25, and then suddenly up to 42% for the recharges. Now they're 25, 35, and 45 in the proposed changes, so that's actually more delineated there as well. So you get a bit more at proto, but not much more, but the actual progression up is a lot more linear rather than that huge jump at the end.
Well, and that itself helps a lot with some of the proto styling issues in pub matches, because the standard gear that I use a lot of standard gear in just pub matches, and it's kind of nice to pull them up. And granted, the proto stuff did get a bit of a buff, but not as much of a buff as the standard and advanced did. So when you kind of give that more of a linear progression, it makes the fighting against proto guys a bit easier, rather than dealing with this exponential scaling opposed to something that's more linear. So I'm really glad to see that too, kind of pulling the bottom up a bit.
It's funny that you mentioned the shield extenders, because when we it was right after Hotfix Alpha had been deployed, and we started talking about shield modules and how to fix it in Skype channel, right? And one of the first things that I said, and I got jumped for it almost immediately. I said, what about if we change it to, instead of 233.66, we change it to 25.50.75, because. And I got jumped for it, and but I understand why. It's mostly because my thinking was, oh my god, they just, reduce the CPU and PG cost of these armor plates. People are going to be fitting armor plates and brick tanking even more. And then you got these really expensive PG and CPU values on the shield extenders. We need to make them as powerful as, and it was just really stupid and just definitely a fault on my part that I think is really funny.
I don't know. I was saying that you should make shield extenders have 2/3 the HP value of armor plates, and yeah, that would increase the HP. And yeah. And when you say it like that, yeah, brick tanking is definitely a problem.
Yeah, it's just significantly easier to fit
take an entire magazine of my assault rail rifle and still shoot me in the face. I hate that.
Well, I mean,
if you take a full round, then I think you're missing a bunch.
Not much.
If you didn't notice, I posted a discussion on buffing the assault. And one of the things that I spoke about on that thread was a particular comment that was exploratory for the most part, but it is a serious comment, and it has to do with the idea that you mentioned earlier. I think Aeon and Jaysyn, you touched on it, on the idea that heavies end up having their own, they have their pool of HP for the most part, because they already and commandos as well, and so using plates and extenders for them. I mean, I rarely, if ever, hear of outside of maybe Caldari using shield extenders, because the pool of HP being increased is less significant compared to or at least is competitive with other modules that you might place there. Whereas the point that I'm getting to is, what if instead of for a scout, plates and shields having the capacity to provide you with 80% of your HP pool, it was lower, and most of the HP that you got on your frame came from base HP, and here's an arbitrary number, but the most amount of HP that you could add to your frame was 30%. This way would make other modules much easier to be competitive with tanking.
Yeah, I think numbers aside, I mean that's obviously a lot more complicated, but the idea of making active tanking more viable, and like you said, you can only really do that effectively on the heavier suits because you can rely on your base HP more. Like I said earlier, I run the Galenta Commando and I run nothing but reps on it, because you've got that base HP you can work with. You can actually have your active, HP regeneration modules, be viable. But on a suit like an assault or a scout, you really can't rely on those, because you need the HP just to survive long enough to get behind cover.
Well, I will take issue and say, or not take issue, but just make the point that Appia knows this. Brick tanking for a true scout who's shotgunning is not going to be the main priority, because a lot of scouts still around with, Appia could tell you more about this, but they much prefer to run a kin cat over a plate.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore though, because they took out the dampening bonus, and scanning's still so powerful.
I mean, even so, though, I mean, I know like Ghost Kaiser, Boromir, Arbiter 2202, and many others like from FA. Just the main people that I play with that still run Scout, and specifically Min Scout. They still want to run Kin Cats and try to capitalize. Like that's because of the way that dampening works. Like dampening provides you with almost a give to the push that everyone else has. Aside with with the exception of the Commando and the Heavy for base HP.
I
HP.
keep having a discussion with Ghost Kaiser. Like he shared his PC Mimitar Scout fit, and like he runs 2 damps and a Kin Cat, and he's posted on the forums. So I'm not like giving away any trade secrets. I hope. I'm just like, how do you do that? Any Caldari Scout with a 3rd precision enhancer is gonna detect you no matter what. Or, the Galente with proto scanner. Or the like I don't know how you do that. Like you're too low HP and you're too easy to find.
Now you know why I have him on home point for the most part, because usually if they're going to make the home point push, it's not going to be a Cal Scout because they're worried about it being scanned up, because a Cal Scout can't get under all dampening. They more likely send someone who is specialized into getting under all scans.
So
Yeah,
one thing I just want to offer to the Scout foray, and this is one thing that I think is very unique to how the Scouts in the Dust community talk. You guys are extremely good at the equation of how do Scouts balance against each other. I would offer you that to any other suit other than a Scout, which is probably going to be right now the majority of the game. There's a lot more Scouts than there used to be, but the majority of suits being played are still not Scouts. You can dampen against many of those, if not all. So your advantages in Scout on Scout play is a whole different discussion. It's when you talk about like the heavies or the assaults or the logis that you're stuck. That's like, the Scouts right now ridiculously overpowered against those other entities on the battlefield. Scout on Scout is a great byplay though.
With the way competitive play that that's passive scans goes, Jason, or even active scans with shared squad vision, I can tell you like there's just that Scout on Scout play like it carries over into every other role on the field though. You can elaborate on that, Appia, why that is if you want.
Yeah, like here's my take on it. Like the way I see it is you have tactics of ambushing, frontline assaults and flanking. Those are your 3 main things. Frontline is pretty standard, let's run one person into another person. Flanking is let's go around and shoot them at the side, divide their attention and focus all of your damage on one point. And then ambush is in lane wait. What scanning does is it protects you from tactics. When you're pushing forward, it protects you from an ambush waiting to happen. When you're on defense, it protects you from being surprised by that flanking maneuver. What dampening does, all it does is protect you. It protects you from scanning, and it only protects yourself. So one of one important aspect of dampening is to maintain your tactics. That's why you do it. And in Scout v Scout, like, if you have people with no Scouts on the field, no active scanners, anybody can flank anybody. It's real short scan range. And you're all basically blind. But once you put a single Scout into that, it doesn't matter who it is. The scanners are just so different that you can't dampen against it as a medium frame. So everyone's scanned. And then it becomes this war of attrition between a single person trying to protect their tactical playstyle, and then one team member sacrificing EHP or DPS to protect everyone from tactical skill. So when Scouts decide to attack numbers, it's I want to protect my playstyle. These are why I have to counter another Scout, because that's the most prevalent counter to me.
just to derail the scout topic yet again, because we've got back onto scouts from shields. I'm also looking at the Amar medium suit changes that are actually coming in. Anyone had any thoughts on those?
The additional low slot.
The additional low slots. The additional
Is
low
that
slots that people are
confirmed?
screaming for.
Was that confirmed?
Well, it says it's on proposed. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
proposed.
Oh, nice. I'm really happy for that.
Well, it's always been since they first sort of came out that they had a higher base EHP in order to counteract for that single slot. It was obviously deemed that it wasn't worthwhile to do that.
Yeah, well, that actually goes back to what Zatara was saying about like the whole percentages thing. I think I kind of disagree with it because it seems to me that it's very broad spectrum, and I know like there's an appeal to have more active tanking instead of like brick tanking, but I think that should be something more for a specialized role and race as opposed to like the general theme or flavor. Because I mean, like the Amar are meant for raw hardcore buffer, whereas the Galente are meant for special that specialized active tanking, having a little less HP for a little bit faster recovery. So it's one of those things you have to kind of consider whenever you're kind of weighing the checks and balances between them.
Yep. And kind of we'll round this off real quick, guys. I think Aeon and Jackal just touched on it. Like we talked a lot about the different equipment pieces, but one of the things I've noticed is that at least in the Bravo spreadsheet they released, there were some significant changes to CP and PGU for some suits, specifically the heavy suits. And I, my personal opinion, I think that's probably as important as a lot of these different changes. What do you guys think?
Well, according to the previous notes, the other suits, the Mimitar, Galente, and Caldo heavy suits, didn't actually go up across the tiers according to the sheet. Now they do.
Yep, I think that'll actually go a long way.
I'd hope so, because it's difficult to fit all you want on a Caldari Sentinel and stuff at the moment as it is.
Weren't these just the basic seats though?
No,
Yeah,
they left I thought they left all the standards the same, but the advanced and the proto level. I know the proto level's got significant buffs.
No. I meant basic, as in not roll.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
I
never use basic suits ever. I tell people not to.
It does raise the question: why would they do that? The basic suits are generally skipped. You get to level 3, then you go into your special suit, and you generally use that from then on because it's A, cheaper, and B, you get bonuses that the basic suits don't.
It's because you don't get bonuses for frame suits like you're supposed to.
Yeah, why bother with altering them if no one uses them?
I mean, technically, you should get a bonus for every level of frame suit, and then when you get a specialist, you get a second bonus.
Similar to the Eve style.
That was exactly the intent, and why they never did that, I kind of boggles my mind.
It's probably their stupid tagging system being a problem again.
Yeah, the Unreal Engine tag system apparently has limitations in that department.
No, it's terrible. It drives me nuts every time I look at it.
Oh, every time I hear the tag system, I think, oh, bugger.
You think you'd think of this beforehand you built the system, that if it's not going to perform the way it needs to, you probably shouldn't be going with that. Because the way bonuses are applied just drive me nuts.
We do have some other changes, though. Are we going to wrap up anything else, though?
I'd like to touch on the railguns a bit, actually.
Go ahead, Pokey.
So the railgun changes. Railguns are getting nerfed a bit there. And from the standpoint of tank v tank, I'm actually pretty glad about this. I feel railguns were way too good at considering how strong they were at close range. I always get frustrated when I'm in a blaster at point blank and still getting out DPS. I mean, granted, it is a more of an anti-vehicle weapon, so I'm fine with that. But I'm glad to see that they're toning the damage down a bit, and toning the fire rate down a bit, and nerfing the damage mods. Now, my concern with this, however, go ahead.
No, the damage mods, in addition to the nerf, they're also making it have stacking penalties. Now, that's something that I was surprised to find out they didn't actually have. Originally, they actually stacked on top of each other. So you had 20% or 30%, then you had another 30% on top of that, then another 30% on top of that. It's no wonder that, militia rails with 3 stacked damage wads were actually doing 2-shotting even hard tanks.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest complaint with the game in all aspects, infantry and vehicle, is damage inflation. And we saw that a lot with the 10% damage mods we had for infantry a while ago, and they've obviously reduced that to 5% now. And when I first saw 30% for vehicles, I was like, are you kidding me? 30%? That's going to be insane with the railguns, and look what happened. So the fact that they're adding the stacking penalty, which should have been there in the first place, and they're also reducing it so it's more of a tiered based system, the 10, 15, 20. I'm really glad to see that. And that's, again, for tank versus tank. Now, my concern comes in that railguns are one of the more effective means to fight dropships, specifically assault dropships. I'm concerned that with the nerf to railguns, it will make it even more difficult to kill assault dropships for in the position of a tanker. So, maybe that's a different pass, and it's probably good that they handle this in iterations. But I think dropship versus for tanks specifically is going to be a real pain in the ass for a while here because of the railgun nerf.
Yeah, you see, I'm actually, even as a tanker, I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, well, what is a tank's role in the field? It's, well, anti-tank. If you've got a railgun fitted, your general role is anti-tank or anti-turret or anti-installation sort of thing is what I would believe a role to be. Why should that also be good against dropships? What I'm thinking is, since these small railguns are now actually really effective against dropships, maybe in order to multi-role a HAV, like take on installations and dropships, you have to have another turret on top that's set for that particular task. That's how I would view it. So you get your driver who's driving your tank, like me or Pokey or whatever, and then you get someone in the gunner seat whose job is to take out the dropships. Because those guns don't have a elevation limit. They can go straight up 90 degrees.
Is it 90 degrees? I know it's quite a bit steeper. I don't think.
Well, it's 80 degrees,
okay,
almost straight up. So really, if you wanted to have that sort of capability, the only issue obviously at the moment being you can't place the turret where you want. If you want one turret, it automatically defaults to the front section where you generally don't want it. You actually want on top for anti-drop operations. But maybe that's the way they're trying to push it more towards, hey, if you want to do more than one thing, have more than one person in the tank.
That's actually pretty legit. I mean, I think we've seen that with kind of the changes to blasters recently. I've been playing with the large blasters, and the increase to dispersion is pretty noticeable. I can still get people at close range, but when they're further away, it takes a hell of a lot longer to actually get a kill. Now the small blasters are still pretty good at mowing them down. So I'm kind of glad to see kind of a push towards a more, if you want to dominate, you're going to need 2-3 people in the tank to do so.
That's how I look at it. The fact that these small railguns are actually effective now, and they're actually good to fit on a tank and have someone there who's actually watching it back from the sky. If you're there without, tanks generally don't try to take on aerial targets, even in real life, without another person guiding the second weapon, sort of thing.
That's fair, actually. That's a good point. But yeah, I think.
And that's coming from a tanker who likes taking out dropships with railguns.
Oh yeah, no, I'm there with you. I've just learned to hate railguns because I hate the fact that it's the only really viable weapon right now to use, in other against other tanks, aside from maybe a missile turret on against armor. But in most cases, you're pretty much stuck doing rails because everyone else is doing it, stacking damage mods and being a real pain in the ass. So these changes are, from my perspective, as a guy who likes to blow up other tanks with tanks, very welcome. It makes it a little more interesting rather than just, glass cannon all the damage you can and hope for the best.
And militia weapons is the other thing that I was looking at as well. How we're adding in all militia weapons for most of your basic things. We're going to have militia scramble rifles, rail rifles, everything like that. How's anyone? I feel quite excited about. I'm quite excited about trying out things that, although I've skilled into everything now, pointless, but for new players especially, to be able to try out all these new weapons and stuff without actually being forced to run 1 or 2 militia weapons without SP investment.
Yeah, and I would love to see. I want to see them revise the starter fits. I think I think we're, as far as I know, we're still all at the same starter fits we had in closed beta practically, and we're at the point where the starter fit should be more should recognize the fact that we do have full racial suit parity at this point.
Well, the suits themselves are racial, but the weapons are all the same, pretty much. It's the module layout, stuff like that is pretty much the same. Like if you roll a MAR, you get a MAR starter suits. If you roll Caldari, you get Caldari starter suits. But the weapons are still the Galente assault rifle, stuff like that.
I mean, we have all of the variants, or at least enough variants, to create a compelling kit of starter suits that are entirely based on the particular race of the player starting out.
Yeah, another thing on the militia weapons, I noticed that it's not in the spreadsheet as a militia heavy machine gun. And I find that a little odd because there is definitely a militia force gun.
They specifically said why they didn't have that. They weren't sure how to make it appropriate militia. Like, what needed to change between the basic HMG and a militia HMG. If it was like overheat time, total clip size.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors involved with the HMG. They've only just, it used to be, it's gone between being utterly crap to being overpowered to what it is now, which is pretty well balanced. But there's a lot of elements to HMG that you can't affect just one of them and have it turn to militia level. You have to affect all at some point or some description.
Yeah, I think a mix of maybe reducing the magazine size and particularly the heat buildup, making it so it can't really be used as much of a suppressive weapon as we have right now for the standard, I think would go a long way. And reload time, which is a pretty common theme for militia weapons. But yeah, like Jackal said, I think it could be a number of things. But I would like to see that in there because I think that if someone wants to roll heavy and try it out, they should have the option to give it a go and not be forced to use a forge gun for their only heavy weapon for a militia variant. I mean, what do you guys think? What do you think would be a good way to kind of tweak the HMG to make it militia grade?
I'd probably go with the overheat more than anything else, and maybe a wider spread or a tighter spread. I'm not sure which one actually hurts the HMG more. Usually, I've played it, but I don't focus on it.
I concur with the overheat because like you can try to like reduce the magazine count, but that's not going to like lower its efficiency in the actual heat of the moment combat. I mean, longevity, yes, but on the 1v1s and the 1v3s is not going to really matter.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I mean, the burst variant of the HMD is really the only one that ever overheats. So is making the overheat on the militia one really gonna?
Well, it doesn't like
agree.
Like I don't think it'll be a good experience for the player. Like this is how the weapon works. If they're overheating and then they put 1 point into it and realize, oh hey, I never overheat.
Well, I think that's why I said it needs to be a number of things, not just one factor, because the HMG does have a lot of strengths and not a ton of weaknesses in some traditional regards. So I think having a little bit of everything would definitely make it go make it more sense for a militia version. I mean, it kind of comes down to what the main factors are. What do you complain about when you're using an HMG? I mean, for me, it's usually reload speed is what I'm always like, God damn it, it's pretty bad. But it needs to be more than just that because, like you said, the magazine is so large already that you typically don't need to be using the whole magazine before you've got time to reload behind cover and out of fire.
Yeah, there's one big thing in the Hotfix Bravo that we're overlooking: the normalization of all the rifle ranges. Big thing. All the rifles across the tiers being normalized to be the same as yellow, very close to.
Yeah, that actually is interesting. I didn't see that before.
Like, personally, I've made a DPS chart for certain weapons, and specifically the shotgun. When they were saying in 1.8 they're going to change the proficiency from rate of fire bonus to shield damage. And I specifically said that this is going to be a huge nerf for the shotgun because from standard to proto, the amount of damage per shot doesn't change the number of shots to kill a suit. So one of like the ways to balance it, I was hoping for would be increase the effective range of the proto ones. But if all the standard rifles, the fine rifles, are normalized, that doesn't seem like an action to take because that's not how the other weapons in the game are working.
Well, now when they say normalized, what they're saying is like, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the tiers. So like standard to proto, like the range of that specific weapon.
The range is the same. So what they could do
that's actually kind of legit. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jackal. Sorry.
No, I'm just trying to say that reference Appia say that it may be legit to actually increase the effective range of the shotgun proportionately. So when it's normalized, or as it is normalized, I think normalized at the moment, you've got the extra range on all the variants rather than just on the prototype.
Yeah, I think that would be probably a legit option. I want to run militia shotguns and like a BPO shotgun, but I could see where that would be fairly useful, to be honest with you.
It's going to be very costly for that small amount of damage increase.
Yeah, and I've said like the number of shots it takes to kill someone doesn't change. So maybe like it's 4.8 meter range for that one, but like the what they're changing actually here, the standard AR that's getting a huge buff to range comparatively.
I wouldn't say a huge buff. Just remember those figures you divide them by 100 and you get your meters thing. So they get an extra 5 meters of effective range.
The prototype lost 8 meters, so.
And the prototype lost 8 meters. The all prototype variants generally lost a fair bit, and if you divide it by 100, that's what you get. It's 65 meters for the assault rifle, to 70 meters.
Jesus.
Which honestly, that combined with their DPS increase, I think you're going to see a lot of. I think you're going to see a lot of resurgence of the. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of resurgence of those threads and whatnot.
Well, to be perfectly honest, the DPS increase is only 25 DPS. It's not a huge amount. It's only based on rate of fire too, not on spread or anything like that.
Yeah, but this is the part where I usually don't step in until we get to this part right here. I'm a fairly dedicated rail rifle user. I've used scramblers and a lot of other things too, but the rail rifle is what I've been using mostly. And one thing I would tell you is I'm absolutely on board with some tweaks to that weapon, 100%. But the one thing that I've asked CCP for and asked the CPM for is show me the average range of the kills. And anybody that tells me that all the arguments about the rail rifle or even the combat rifle in terms of range versus the AR, it's based on potential. I suspect if you actually ran the numbers, that the majority of kills are within every rifle's optimal, or at least they're at a minimum they're effective of both parties. Very rarely do you get a point where you're taking the maximum advantage of a combat rifle or a rail rifle's range. You can sometimes if you actively try to do it, but the majority of kills are probably going to be in the lethality zone.
Well, I would really hope that a rail rifle's, average kills would be within its optimal range, considering how fucking large it is.
I actually poked CCP Ratati about this one in the feedback threads and said he's got this DPS versus range graph, effective range, obviously. And I said, hey, well, that's not enough. What's the kick? What's the dispersion? What's the everything on what's the effective range of these things? What's their damage at effective range rather than in the optimal and stuff like that? And I said we just need more numbers, and we didn't get them, unfortunately. We needed more data to actually correlate these figures and take it away from potential DPS, which is strictly by the numbers, to actual DPS.
And see, that's the part. Is like like I said, I'm all the problem with any kind of direct fire hit scan weapon is that everybody wants to trade range and DPS, which is very logical. The problem is it's kind of a nice problem to have because they try to make the game so deep with different factors that run into play. You can very quickly turn something like a rail rifle, and to not really the combat rifle, but definitely the rail rifle. You could turn that into a weapon that is very hard to finish people at its optimal range, and then when you continue to make it difficult to use in close quarters, it really devalues weapons. Because again, my just subjective opinion, I think the majority of kills going on are probably within the 40 to 60 meter range, which means every weapon can hit you. And I think it's in the same thread as like, even if the guy that I'm shooting at isn't like I'm outside of his optimal or his effective, and I'm actually maximizing the use of the rail rifle, the chances are I'm probably inside one of his squad mates optimal. So that's one of the things I've always kind of wondered about when they try to balance range and DPS for the light weapons. I don't know how to do it. I think, like I said, it's a nice problem to have, but it's one that I don't know that we're ever going to get a good answer for.
I think it's just a matter of getting the potential DPS, like getting away from potential DPS and actually getting to the actual DPS that is actually being inflicted. As you said, getting the stats on ranges of people killed with the weapons. Obviously, rail rifle. Okay, most of the kills took place at say 55 meters. AR, most of the kills took place at 30 meters or something like that. That way you can normalize for that level, which is the majority, and not the outliers who are. I've killed someone with a rail rifle at 90 meters before personally, but it was a very long shot and the guy was almost dead when I did it. But I didn't do much damage to him to kill him, but I still got the kill at 90 meters.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, like seeing the AR's damage increase, if it gets to a point where it's a problem, I'm totally cool with cutting the range down a bit to actually make it a dedicated CQC weapon. But I don't want to like jump immediately into that. I kind of want to see what happens with this Hotfix Bravo first.
Yeah, you don't want to change too many things at once, but I agree with that sentiment that if it's going to have insane DPS, it needs to be definitely outranged by most of the other rifles.
Well, one thing that does confuse me, they've changed the breach assault rifle. They've actually gave it more effective range than the standard assault rifle. Now, in my opinion, according to its description as well, it was actually pegged as a close quarters combat weapon. Why would you give it more effective range?
Good question. I don't know.
I honestly think they don't need to, like, they've totally mucked up the descriptions of what the weapons are versus what they actually are in game. So you really can't
semi-automatic mag sec.
Well, no. I mean, but think about it. Like if you look at kind of the 4 descriptions that have assault, breach, tactical, and
yeah, well, the tactical says high damage per shot. Says cinematic.
Right.
It's not anymore.
So yeah, and that's my point. Is like that's what I'm saying. Is like when you tell me, like, to me, when you say the word breach, I'm thinking high alpha in its close range because I'm like breaching into something. The longest range should be tactical, hands down. Assault is, kind of should be the middle of the road of everything, I guess. I don't know. And the burst is, I don't know, it's meh. It's kind of no different to me than the assault rifle, really, because I can get the same effect out of assault rifle I can with most bursts. So I don't know. I just a thought, but
I don't really like burst for close quarters combat, but that's my style.
I mean, one thing I forget what I saw exactly, but it was a CCP thing, and they actually tagged. I think it was they were talking about the optimal ranges of the rifles back at 1.7 maybe, but they tagged the rail rifle as, in quotations, a breach weapon. So I'm wondering if what they're trying to do is kind of push the concept of what a breach weapon is as being more of the long range, low fire rate, and in turn making that breach assault rifle behave more like a rail rifle and less like a full auto standard assault rifle, which is typically better for close quarters because of the high fire rate.
Yeah, but say high fire rate generally is better for close quarters combat anyway. So having a low fire rate, high damage weapon is generally not a breach sort of variant anyway.
Did you guys see my thread on the hip fire accuracies and some of the discrepancies? Yeah, dude, the breach, the rail rifle, and the assault rifle are all kind of jacked up.
I do not agree with you. One quick thing is not even one quick thing. We're getting close to the 2-hour mark, so we really kind of need to kind of start wrapping it up. We'll go around the horns just for sort of last thoughts and stuff like that, and we'll save a pocket of time for Aeon to like expound on that on the next show if he wants to come on. So we'll kind of kick this off. We'll start from the top, and we'll have to push it down through Xel. Aeon, this time we'll get you in order. Appia, then Pokey, Jackal, Derry. We'll throw me and Derry in the middle there. But again, really good discussion. I mean, we could probably talk about this for like literally another hour and a half, but just in the interest of time, we probably want to move on, guys. But the cool thing is we can have you guys all back in any other show. Anytime you guys ever want to come on, we'll always have you back. So with that, we're going to start with shout outs. So Zell, you're going to lead us off, brother.
All right. I'm going to give a shout out to Hinox and Killer 12 and let them know that the struggle is indeed real.
Fucking bullshit. I don't care how much he's giving all of you. That's bullshit.
Everyone needs this. And Hinox also for his creative writing efforts, and we won't be providing links to them, but I'm sure you can find them. I'm also going to give a shout out to Darth, Darth Carbonite in my alliance, who is wrong about me being a bad Logi, and that's it.
I don't know. Still a little upset about the whole CCP layoff, so shout out to those guys.
Word there. And by the way, just on a quick one on that one, CCP, the former CCP Saberwing, he's still pretty active on Twitter, and he continues to engage all of us that have been talking to him. He's a great dude. So definitely totally agree with you there on that one. Happy shout outs?
Shout out to the Dust player, Lady Killington, for being my out-of-game BFF, and the Dust player, Francesca, for when she quit Dust, giving me her Templar codes instead of just tossing them out the window.
Ooh, nicely done. Okay. And I'll give shout outs real quick to everybody in the channel for showing up and having a great discussion yet again. Shout out to the Podside crew for keeping us running here on the Mumble and letting us use a lot of their backbone for the show. So again, couldn't do the show without a lot of people. I do want to give a shout out to a lot of the folks in the community that's been giving us feedback on the show. The reality is that we hear your feedback, and then even Skype channels or just in-game comments we get, like every time that you guys talk to us about the show, like what you want to hear and who you want on, that's going to help us really serve the community better. So what we really want to do is provide a platform for people that are in the know or very knowledgeable folks or engaging folks to talk about the things the community wants to hear. So anybody in the Biomassed channel in game, or hit us up on Skype or on the forums. Really appreciate any of the feedback that you can give us, because we want to keep making this a show that you want to listen to. So I want to throw that one out to everybody. And it is Father's Day, so I am a dad, and I am very glad it's Father's Day. I had an awesome time spending it with my kid, and I would like to give a shout out to everybody, one of my E bros and my Dust bros that are fathers. Congratulations, happy Father's Day. And I'll pass this over to Derry real quick. Shout outs, brother.
Just kind of echo Jay, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Shout out to our kangaroo fighter, Faith Mal, listening on the stream right now. Shout out to my corp, OSG Planetary Operations, our Alliance, Covert Interventions, and to everybody here on the stream. Thanks for showing up.
Cool. And Pokey?
Shout out to Appia for showing up. It's kind of good to actually speak to you in person. I don't think we've ever actually played on comms before, so it's good to put a voice to the name. Shout out to Daria for staying up late with us and streaming despite going overtime every single time. On that note, we are probably moving the show back an hour, guys. Is that cool to say now? Starting at 7
we
next
should
week.
mention that. Actually, we're gonna go just a little bit earlier, 1 hour.
Yeah, so we'll be starting at 7 opposed to 8, but it is at least my time. So yeah, we'll catch us next week.
That would be
and,
0200 Eve time.
Yes, for the technicalities. But shout out to my dad as well. Happy Father's Day. With me screaming on mic and spending way too much time playing this game. I know it drives him nuts, but he's a good guy. So thanks for everyone on the show. And like Jay said, glad to have you back. We had some really good discussions. This is what it's all about. So I'm glad to have you.
Awesome. And Black Jackal.
Shout out to all my Aussie bros who, mind you, don't celebrate Father's Day until the first Sunday of September, not June. You guys get it a lot earlier than we do.
Backwards as usual.
Backwards as usual, upside down, whichever way you want to refer to us as. Or shout out to all my Aussie bros, my New Zealand bros, and also the Americans that have listened in and who don't mind listening to my grating accent and me saying mate all the time. And shout out to the Grey Dust community, guys. You've stuck with it. The guys have stuck with it. Even the guys who've left. You guys have actually put a lot more support into this game than a lot of other games we've ever had. So great work on that front.
Awesome. Zatara?
I definitely want to give a shout to my own father. Give a shout out to my boy Boromir for making me completely ineffective in ambush matches when he's on the other side. I want to give a shout out to Tech Mech Meds for some awesome games played this week with the plasma cannon. And I want to give a shout out to the guys who are on the R Reddit. R Dust 514 subreddit. There was a thread this week where people were talking about a thread mentioning that that the official candidates list was up, and somebody posted no Zatara. So I appreciate the patience, guys, as I finally finalize all the things I want to say in the little 300,000 character tidbits. That's what's holding me back.
All right, that's totally legit. And I have to say, as I'll close the show out, that I am not immune to the ISK. So the struggle is real. So on that note,
that's bullshit.
Sell out.
No, I'm looking at you. Yeah, I'm seeing the money getting thrown around the other channel. I'm like, fuck this, I gotta get in on this. so on that one, guys. Great show tonight. It was really a lot of fun. Like I said, we always go over, but that's mainly because we have like a really great crew on, showing and show out. Really, really appreciate everybody showing up tonight. And I don't know that we have the title of the episode yet. Depends on how much Hinox pays us. Just saying, throwing that out there, brother. But again, you are all welcome back. And Appia, we definitely want to have you back on another time. The first show, when everybody kind of gets to kind of engage with you the first time, it'll always run long, or catch you flat-footed or whatever. But we definitely want you back to engage on this some more. So anytime that you want to come back, free reign to come back, just like everybody else in the channel does. So, all right, guys. We had a great time, and we will see you soon on the battlefield of dust, or maybe in the skies in Eve. Right? Signing off. 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 Right?